All right, dude. I'm gonna write a couple of these down that I wrote.
He's the
on.
one that edits it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, no, he's gonna send it to our editing team, and they're gonna do it all
Okay.
for us. So yeah, don't knock it out. First time home buyer myths.
Cool.
You got us. All right, I'm just writing a couple things down. Every home buyer needs to know.
That's a neat little room you have in here.
Yeah, man.
And the fact they utilize it too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've been big time because the market, and I'm not even on TikTok, but
Me neither.
TikTok's kind of the movement that started all this stuff, and
Podcasts are everywhere.
everywhere, and the little, like hopefully we. I've been known for years, and Russ, I've watched you start out in this business young and energetic and just wet behind the ears. Well, I don't even know, 15, 20 years ago now. And watching you grow to where you're at now, and watching you kind of become a powerhouse in our area for real estate. So real quick, just for people that might not know you, tell me just a little bit about where you're from and kind of how you got into the business.
Yeah. So Russ Vegas from Cutoff, Louisiana. Came out here in 2009 once I got out of high school. Just tried the college gig, and that just didn't really ride the wave like I thought I could. And then I got a random phone call from one of my friend's girlfriends at the time while I was going to the neighborhood Walmart. I'll never forget that. Asking if I would be interested in real estate. I'm like, let's do it. Did a little interview with him. Took my test 5 times.
Yeah.
And then after that 5th time was the home run.
But stayed with it though.
Stayed with it 5 times. Yeah.
That I think that says a lot about your character though, man.
Yeah, hard-headed. Yeah, right.
You didn't give up, man. Yeah.
And then just rock and roll. I actually started as a showing agent for a team out here, and did that for a little while to work my way up the ranks.
Yeah.
And
that was kind of the first step, like getting into the showing world before they kind of hand you off to buyers.
That's the platform they had, and I ran with it. I had full faith in the team, and thankfully they steered me in the right direction, and really got to learn from truly the ground up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was pretty neat. Kind of looking back, I'm glad it really worked out that way, hindsight.
Yeah, and I think too, like getting in with the right company or right spot is so important for newer realtors, because a lot of times, I mean, I don't know what the rate is that realtors are out of the business a year after starting, but I know it's high. I know it's not an industry that retains a lot of people for that reason. So getting in on the ground level with the right people and getting fed the right way, I think is important to help you grow. Now, tell me a little bit about Cutoff. So you came to Baton Rouge. Kind of had the college years going on and stuff, and then eventually got into the real estate world. When you were from Cutoff initially, because I know, when I first learned about Cutoff, I hadn't really heard of it. I think you have the MTV girl that's kind of from Cutoff that's made it popular a little bit.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about Cutoff and the differences like coming to Baton Rouge.
Yeah. So very small town. I mean, we got to drive 45 minutes to Houma to if we want to go watch a movie, or go to the mall.
Nice.
So it was just very, up the bayou, down the bayou, across the bayou type of
that's where it
direction giving of where you're going, or where you at, confinement type of thing. But really blessed in my opinion to just be from such that small, tight niche community.
Yeah.
I think it molded me to the man I am today.
Yeah. Relationships.
Yeah, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
Mom and pop feel, really holding, that hand of your client, so to speak.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Make them feel important.
Feeling, not just a number, but know the name.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but I had an assistant years ago, and I remember whenever you would call, she's like, put him on speakerphone, put him on speaker. And I'm like, why? She's like, I just want to hear him talk. And I was like, what? I'm trying to work some deals over here. And she just wanted to hear you talk, man. So I think that accent is such a Louisiana thing that I think makes people feel comfortable. It makes them feel like this guy's one of our guys. Kind of like talking about earlier, like kind of like Brian Kelly coming in didn't quite fit the mold here, right? And it just kind of felt out of place. And I think sometimes you get that even in the real estate world where you get guys that, that just don't know the local market. They don't know the local people. They don't know, like, hey, after we show this house, we're going to go by and grab some lunch over here, Like they know, like somebody who knows the area, knows Louisiana, can tie into some of those relationships a little bit easier than an outsider,
I think that's it. It's all about the relationship, right? And knowing how to nurture a relationship. So I mean, it's been fun.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, watching you grow, man, has been awesome. I mean, I think I was pretty wet behind the ears back in that day too, and it's like you're trying to craft and hone in on what you're good at, and you kind of learn along the way what you're not so good at. Yeah. And it's a kick in the stomach a couple times over the years. Still. and there's times when you think you kind of might have something kind of figured out, and then the market shifts on you.
Ever changing.
With our market now, like, what do you see that's so different? Because a lot of buyers now are saying it just feels different. What do you think's different now with the average buyer than say 5 years ago even?
So going back 5 years, we're looking at like the COVID era, right? When rates were, I got a rate locked in the high twos.
Yeah.
So you had people, and that was kind of the norm. High twos, mid threes at worst.
Yeah.
So just tons of opportunity to get a nice price point house. With a low note.
Right.
But with that comes a lot of disadvantages when, you look at a competition.
Sure.
So on the flip side of that, right now, we're, low sixes, high fives, depending on the borrower.
Right.
So totally different market when it comes to, looking at that, what that monthly payment looks like. So it kind of pushes a lot of buyers to the sideline, which gives you that opportunity when it comes to maybe list price, not having to pay list price or above list price like we had to, in the COVID era, right? And getting closing costs and getting concessions and, potentially still getting that washer, dryer, refrigerator to remain at no value with the house. And
right.
Just having more of a voice,
yeah.
as a buyer, which I think's awesome.
Right.
Right. It allows you to fit the glove a little more and not just say, hey, look, do what it takes for me to get that house.
Right.
Yeah. So again, you had opportunities in both markets.
Yeah. I think that's a good point because I think you have a lot of people that sit on the sidelines almost saying like, I'm going to wait for this. And it's almost like a made up number, kind of like your guys at the gym. They're like, hey, January 1st, I'm going to start working out. It's almost like they put this time period or this rate or just whatever and say, that's when I'm going to start looking. And what we see a lot of times is those guys that are sitting on the sidelines, well, they all come off the sidelines. So now the stuff you're talking about, now you have an influx of buyers, right, that are, that have been waiting and they all jump on a house. And like you said, there's pros and cons for both, but then you might not be getting that washer and dryer at that point. You might not be getting that full seller concessions,
cash,
that a buyer in this market is, know, and
I think what helps with that is, the only real way to find out if the time is right is to get with a lender.
Yeah.
Like you just can't say, I'm going to wait for the interest rate. Don't let the interest rate dictate when you are ready.
Yeah. Right.
Because there's like kind of like a running saying that we say is like, date the rate, marry the house, right? You could always refi on that.
100%.
That house.
That's right.
And from what I'm seeing on my side, property value is really not going down.
Right.
It's not increasing like we saw in 2021. But it's still going up.
Yeah.
So you are going to pay more for that same house.
Do you get, I guess on both sides, do you get buyers and sellers right now thinking that the market's going down? Because we're not really seeing that, it seems like.
Yeah, right. And we just got to look at what data says. And from what I'm seeing, data's not saying that.
Yeah, because we've kind of been seeing the same thing on the lending side where, house prices have just exponentially gone up, right? And it does make a tricky market where, if we can lure them maybe that's not the right word, but if we can get them to buyers off the sidelines because you can get full seller pays, right?
Yeah.
Because we maybe do a 2-1 buy down, get money from the seller because you're taking advantage of the seller maybe not having all these buyers to choose from.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to ask the right questions, right?
Yeah.
Ask the right questions of like, what is holding you back? Is it you don't have the 20% down that you think you have to have?
Yeah, very good point.
What is it like? So like really again I think talking to the lender is one of the first points that you should go to
Right.
So they could see what your particular situation looks like, because everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
You know, you can't say, oh, my neighbor or my cousin or my friend got, you know, a 6% interest rate. Well, you know, it comes down to a lot of things to get that 6% interest rate.
That's right.
And that 6% interest rate might be good for you, or you might be able to get lower.
Yeah.
You know, so like really, let's look at your personal
Yeah.
situation before we say now is or not the time. Because look, I have conversations with clients all the time. Buy and sell side, now isn't the right time. You know, but in some cases it is.
Yeah.
You know, so you really just got to dial into their personal situation to really guide them.
Yeah, you know, our side's the exact same way on the lending side, where we have to ask those questions, right? Because if we don't ask those questions, then you lose a potential buyer because they just get overwhelmed, or they just, you know, their expectations aren't quite where they need to be. Because you're right, I can't tell you how many water cooler conversations we have where everyone's like, oh, well, rates are this and my uncle got that, you know, and they come back and they tell us like, well, I mean, you can't just give me, you know, a free down payment, like, you know, and we have to kind of explain like there's options that might fit you, but maybe you make too much money for that, you know, which is not a bad thing, right? Like, hey, making too much money, not qualifying for something is a problem a lot of people wish they had, you know, and we have to kind of hone in and ask the right questions, figure out what makes sense for them, because if we're not having those questions, then a lot of times somebody else is.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. People love options.
Yeah.
Right. And the only way to get options is not just going on ChatGPT and saying, hey, you know, what can I buy if I make this amount of money?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's really not the route to go.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's going with a professional that does this day in and day out.
Right. And I think, you know, kind of bringing me to another topic is that relationship between a realtor and a lender. It's important because if you're not on the same page when you're talking to these buyers, you know, like I always say, like I as my realtors, I want them to know enough to be dangerous, but then not necessarily utilize all that knowledge. You know, I feel like they have to utilize all that knowledge, I should say. Instead, like direct them back over to us. Just like if I have a conversation and they're like, hey, do you think this price per square foot's good?
Right.
You know, I'm going to say, hey, let's get back to Russ. You know, like let's talk to our realtor because that's his area.
And hopefully I already talked to him.
And I find most of the time you the thing that you were worried, but it's because buyers were telling them so much information at once. They don't know, you know, they're hearing it from their uncle, they're hearing it from their mom, they're hearing it from their sister who just bought, and it's a lot of information, you know, and it gets overwhelming. And I think as professionals coming in and explaining to them, hey, this is how the system works, or this is how the home buying process works, can alleviate that stress, right?
And that's why from day one till now, I have a buyer's consultation with my clients. Like, I want to walk you through expectation setting of the process. Because it allows them to put their guard down, one, to truly tell me what their needs truly are.
Yeah, because if they don't tell you,
then I can't really help them.
Right.
You know, so just, again, a lot of questions to really make sure I'm asking the right, or giving the right answer, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of these buyers nowadays, it's a new age of buyer. I find like they are more knowledgeable as far as
they have so much more access to getting knowledge.
That's right.
But you got to be careful what you read on the internet.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. That's such a good point, because they are more knowledgeable, but they also get more in their way than ever. I find,
because it is such a tailored experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's a good word. And how you talk to, you know, somebody, you know, tonight might be different than how you talk to somebody over the weekend because of the
market's ever changing.
Yeah, that's right. And their needs are different, right? And, you know, now balancing that real estate life, because you're a dad again, 2 boys now. Yep. So congratulations on that. You know, me being our babies are a couple weeks apart now.
Very close in age,
so I'm on the front lines with you, taking the grenades. So how do you go about, you know, because you've had a successful year, you've had a really strong year, and that's to credit to you, but also you're dad now, you know. So you could sit back and say, hey, 5 years ago I didn't have the dad tag, and I wasn't quite as successful as I am now. So how do you blend those two together, and how have you blended those two together to make them both work?
So I think, we briefly talk about this kind of quite often, right? Just kind of going off each other. But I think first off, you have to have a partner that is understanding, right? Balance isn't just one side. It's a kind of like a seesaw, right? It gotta work both ways. So in our line of work, I mean, our weekend, our afternoon could be wide open till you get that 1 to 2 or 3 phone calls that just takes you working after 5 o'clock, or has you working Saturday morning instead of having your breakfast that you love doing with your family on the weekends and things like that. So I think it's just, when I'm home, I'm present. I'm not on my phone catching up on social media, swiping away and things like that. I'm looking at reels. It's just, I'm with my boys. I'm with my wife. So that allows me, when I'm away, I'm feeling that bucket. So I think that's a big thing. It's like being present.
In both areas.
In both areas, right? I mean, in work, my head's down. I'm focusing on work. And the more I could focus on work, it allows me not to be so much work. I try not to waste time.
I think that's a underrated skill, to be able to balance. And I saw a Zig Ziglar quote years ago that said, you have to know your bullseye, right? Because if you don't know your target, you can't ever hit your bullseye. And it's like he was saying in the quote that so many people are at work and they're thinking about home life, and they're at home and they're thinking about work life. But when you can master that skill of,
and look, I'm human.
There's
days that
there's days it's not quite.
So there's one class I took while I was in college, and it really it clicked for me. And he was talking about how he was on vacation with his wife, and he was working, and his wife was like, look, if you're gonna be working while you're on vacation, I'm like, wow, it's so simple, but it makes so much sense. Like, if you're gonna go on vacation, be on vacation. And look, again, there's times that we're on vacation and you have to do things. But like, just be present on vacation and enjoy it, because if not, you're gonna need a vacation once you get back to work. Exactly. So it's like, take advantage of that time.
That's such a good point. And I think it's something that I deal with all the time too, trying to balance it both out and get to the work stuff so that you can get home and put it away and not have to be, worrying about, like, is somebody texting me, somebody calling me. But then also, you do have to have that somewhat availability, because if you guys as realtors call me on a Sunday.
Nature of the beast, man. I mean, I know what I signed up for. You know what you signed up for. My phone's always on, and I'm going to answer my phone if my clients need me.
That's right.
And again, that goes back to, I have a partner, I have a wife that understands that and supports me 100%. So I don't have to feel guilty for taking that call.
That's right. And I think that's such a good point too, because having the right spouse, partner is everything in our world. Because look, there's sometimes during the LSU game on a Saturday, you might get a call for the first time, and then there's other times where come Monday morning you're ready to go, and the phones aren't ringing.
That's right.
And
the shoes are tight, ready for it.
Right? And you're ready. You're like, hey, I'm here.
That's
I'm
right.
present. I'm ready. You run through your to-do list, and no one's busy.
That's right.
Definitely. I think that's something that I admire about you, being able to balance both, and as you continue to grow, because it's something that I want to pride myself on,
right.
and get
You're doing
better
great,
at.
man.
Thank you, man. I think us surviving. A coworker of mine said, with newborn babies, sometimes you're thriving and sometimes you're surviving.
Right.
And it's so true.
A lot of both.
A lot of both. And I see those little Instagram reels and stuff all the time, and it's like, I don't want to be that dad that looks back on this moment and was like, I was able to hit these numbers and do this and do that, but I wasn't there for important milestones,
100%.
And that's something like I don't ever want to lose sight on. And it's hard, like you said, because you're human.
Naturally, we as humans, we want more and more and more. And what I mean by that is, like, you always want to do better from the previous year. But where is enough? And that's that tough line. I don't think really anybody knows. It's more of a personal thing of, like, when's enough. Like, if you do a little more, you can make a little more money. And then
right.
I'll look at it as, like, well, that's more I could give back to my family, my little boys.
That's right,
like that.
Right.
So it's hard to be like, well, where's that line need to stop at?
Sure.
So it's tough. I think it's an ever-going challenge of understanding when is enough,
Yeah, and I think buying back your time is something that like my
1000%.
focus is going to be on, in the
Yes.
coming years. As my success grows, I want to buy back my time. So like if I can delegate some things, right, and have other people help me out in areas maybe that I'm not as strong at, that they are strong at. Because I think like every
80-20 principle, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. And that's such an important. Tell everybody about the 80-20 principle, by the way, because I know we've talked about it over the years, but the average person probably doesn't know what that is.
Yeah. So 80-20 principle is you focus on what your 20% is, which is going to be your superpower, right? And let everything else go away.
So for instance, what's your 20% or one of the items in there?
Yeah, I would say just relationship building. I'm really pride myself on just, be able to just build relationships and deep relationships to truly let my friend, my customers, my clients, everybody know that I'm always here for them. What I'm really not great at is, just writing those random addendums that need to be done in the midst of a pending contract.
Yeah.
And that's where my transaction coordinator comes in.
That's right.
And she's really good at that. And it allows me to, again, focus on building more relationships instead of, look, addendum takes maybe 3 minutes to type up, but
right.
it never takes 3 minutes to do. That's a 30-minute task plus, when it all comes down to, because you stop at doing this to do that. It's just, and I'm really not good at that. So I recognize that, and I have someone to help me with that.
Right.
And it allows me to keep the needle moving forward,
Going back when I first got into this industry, I felt like I had to be a jack of all trades. I felt like I couldn't, it's almost like if you're playing Madden and you have like those attributes and you can put it towards speed or strength or knowledge. It was like I had to have all of them,
10,
right. And it's like, but you only have so many, right?
You're human, man.
And so like, it's like, so then you have all speed, but no size, and it's like, I had to kind of learn over the years, like, hey, maybe I think I'm good at that small task, but I'm really not. I'm better at other stuff.
And look at it this way: at the end of the day, the longer it takes to figure that out, the longer it takes to give our clients more of what they deserve from us.
Yeah.
So the quicker you can understand what you're really good at, let's give them 100% of that, and let somebody else give them 100% of that other.
Yeah, and then explain to the clients along the way, or the realtors on the other side, or the lenders, hey, this is my transaction coordinator. She's going to lead us to the finish line.
It's all about expectation, right? And if you deliver the message correctly, which I know you will, they understand that with no questions.
Yeah.
Right? Look, you're not getting rid of me. She's not replacing me. She's just an addition to.
Right.
And that's how I explain it.
Yeah.
To make sure all parties are being communicated with at a high level.
Yeah. I mean, because, buyers, I think in general, there's so many times where we both on our individual sides will tell them something, and then they'll come to me afterwards and say, hey, Russ was telling me da 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 da, and I know what they're trying to tell me, but they kind of mess it up just a little bit, and it's a little off, and there's a little worry in their voice when they're talking, and I'm like, let me. I think this is what Russ is trying to say, and I know 100% you do that on my behalf, because I can't tell you how many times you'll call me up and say, hey, so and so just said this, and I'm like, dude,
you might need to call him and just maybe say
and it's like, it reminds me of the Hangover movie. Where he's like, I can be your Doug, it's like, I want to be their Doug, like up with that question, and that way Russ can help you with the other stuff. But the average buyer just doesn't know that. Even when we kind of reiterate it to them, and and when they do get it, you're like, oh, bro, this is great, you know. But a lot of times I think it takes, and again, back to that realtor-lender relationship, the expectations have to be there. We have to communicate to get a transaction done. You and I, on both of our ends. But then also there is some hand holding, with some of these clients that does differentiate us from maybe our competition sometimes, because it's not always on my side just about lowest rate, lowest dollar. It's like, okay, are you going to answer the phone on a Friday night when I have a question?
Everybody sees it different, right? Again, it goes back to, it's a personalized experience. I have clients in today's world, 9 out of 10 of them are digitally savvy, right? You could do the dot loops of the world and send a document. And look, I got a client I'm working on right now. I'm going to get wet signatures for him. I'm going over in person.
Like going to meet them to get
meet
signatures.
them at their house. Yeah. And I'm
because it's not their.
But it's not every file. It's just some files, and I'm cool with that. Right. And I'm going in person. I'm going over the inspection report with them, so we could come up with our inspection response in person.
Right.
So if that's what you need, I'm gonna stop, drop, and roll, and I'm gonna put that on my schedule to make it happen.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so again, it's so hard to explain how real estate is because it's always different depending on
It really
the
is.
client, you know?
And I think it kind of keeps you on your toes too, because it's not one size fits all, you know, and you can't sit there and say, well, this is how I do business. Because as a
Right.
lender, I will lose business if I just say, this is how I do it. You
Yeah.
don't like it, you know, it's like I have to kind of conform to a buyer who might not be tech savvy, and I have to go help them out. Or I might have to conform to a buyer who maybe wants to call me up and rates are 2%, you know, and I have to kind of be able to say it in a nice enough way.
Right.
Like, hey, I know you probably read that somewhere, but let me explain how.
How much points you buying?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's to touch on that. You know, going back to sellers right now paying seller concessions and more so than they have in the past, right? Because I think houses are sitting a little bit longer, and then sellers are also willing to do like 2-1 buy downs. Has that won you some deals with buyers that otherwise wouldn't have bought if they didn't have the seller concessions, or if they didn't have a 2-1 buy down?
Yeah, I would say for sure. Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I might have done 1 or 2-2-1 buy downs.
Yeah, it's not something that is on every deal.
No. But again, it allows us to, because I'm all about a win-win scenario. It's not like, oh my goodness, these sellers are going to give us everything. Let's go take advantage of them. Because I just I don't believe that, and my clients don't either. You know, it's just we got to make this a win-win so we could get to the closing table.
Right.
And I just feel like it's easier right now for a buyer to feel that win-win with a seller than it did back in 2020 and 2021 when sellers really were getting that big win because they're getting multiple buyers paying above appraised value.
Right.
Inspection periods in some cases just for peace of mind.
Yeah. Hey,
you know?
Put conventional on the pre-approval instead of FHA. I remember those days. Yeah.
And bringing a lot of cash to the table.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of win-win scenarios, I feel like, in today's market.
What do you think, and this is one that I didn't even touch on earlier, but what do you think like the average home buyer needs to know now? Because they do feel more savvy. They're doing more homework, I should say, right, than they ever have. Mm-hmm. But what do they really need to know? Like, is there something that you know, that if to start out with that, you know, they might not? Because I feel like the average buyer now comes to us and they almost tell us how your side works, my side works, you know, and sometimes they nail on the head. Yeah. But a lot of times there's still like some misconceptions there. And is there any, you know, tidbit or something that you know of that a home buyer nowadays needs to know, like getting into this world?
That's a good question. I really think, again, it really all depends on if you're a first-time home buyer or you've bought 5 houses. So the best advice I could give is find you a trusted real estate agent.
Yeah.
Right? Like, truly, put that in your pocket, have their number on speed dial if needed, and just ask away. You know, when it comes to questions, if you got a question, don't go to ChatGPT.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, go and ask your professional real estate agent on what do you think or what would you do in this situation.
Yeah.
You know, because again, there's times that I'm not gonna say I turn down business, but sometimes it's not right for them to buy. Sometimes they should rent out that house for another 6 months to 12 months. You know, like you
really, have to tell them that.
It really all depends. I gotta figure out what you're looking to do. Like, what is your end goal now? 5, 3, 10 years from now.
Right.
So I could really, again, guide you to what that next step looks like.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always now. And I think that's a common misconception about, you know, the real estate market and real estate agents is like, we just want to help them sell, buy all the time.
Right.
No, I don't think we're doing justice for our clients if we just always say now.
Yeah. Right.
You know.
Yeah. Maybe setting them up for a year from now, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's such a attribute that not everybody has. Same with us. Sometimes, you know, we're just planting seeds and we're going to have somebody in 6 months that we have to recall. Maybe it's a credit score issue, or, you know, maybe they have to save up money, you know, and but in years past, you know, COVID times, a lot of those people, it's like, hey, you're grabbing the next person, you know, and we're in a different marketplace and more than ever, the relationships do matter, and keeping people, you know, not kicking them to the curb when they don't necessarily buy right this second is important, and keeping them on the Rolodex, because that's the only way to stay on top of it. And look, relationships matter, because 100%. If not, then like you were saying, ChatGPT, you know.
And look, they got good information. You can find out relatively easy nowadays on that. But yeah,
it's not going to replace.
It's not someone that's doing it day in and day out.
Yeah. What do you think? And I know ChatGPT is kind of the new hot topic, but 5-10 years ago, it was like for sale by owners. That was a big thing where everyone was like, "Oh, I don't even need a realtor. I'm just going to go in and sell it myself." And I don't find as much of that anymore. Like I don't know if that's just a shift in ideology or something. But like, what do you say to those guys that are like that want to sell their house themselves? Like, why is that a benefit or not a benefit to do?
That's another good question. I think it comes down to, again, are their numbers that tight that they have to, do for sale by owner? But at the end of the day, numbers show that you net more money with a real estate agent on your side.
Yeah.
That
knows the market.
That knows the market, knows how to get the exposure for that property to drive people to the house.
Yeah.
So
I don't really, and I know someone's going to watch this and say, "Oh, I had success with it at one time," but personally, I can't recall a time when I had a for sale by owner seller that ended up having it work out the way they wanted to. It always seems like there's some red tape.
And you just got to be cautious too. From again, my understanding, and I don't notice the actual percentages of this, but I know it's relatively high. The number of lawsuits that happen with real estate transactions when there's not at least one real estate agent involved.
Yeah.
So that's another big kicker. Yeah, you might have saved money on realtor fees if you want to call it that, but what's happening on the back end? Yeah. Because you got an attorney knocking at your door because of something that was missed or not added or whatever it may be. So all in all, I'm not trying to knock anything here, but
sure.
I always say trust a real estate agent because, again, they
bring value. They add value.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
It adds value.
Net more money for our clients.
Yeah. Going back to you having success this year, you've been successful for a while, but you're taking that next step. I feel. How do you stay motivated? Because you're climbing the ladder. I'm watching you, do it real time. But how do you get back up? And because sometimes you'll be texting, calling me 7:30 in the morning, and I'm like, "Hey man, what's up?" I've been up for hours too. Like, let's do this.
I would think just has to come down to now. Obviously, my motivation has shifted with a growing family, But I think the root of it is also I'm just super competitive.
Yeah.
I'm competitive with myself as well. Mm-hmm. I just want to do better. I want to sharpen my craft. I want to make more sales. I want to build more relationships than I did the previous year.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I really do value these relationships. I don't want to help as many people as possible.
Right.
Taking care of them the correct way.
Yeah.
I've said this before, and it's a running joke that I always tell my clients is that, look, you're stuck with me. This isn't just a sale for me. I am going to be checking on you post-close, making sure the family's still doing good, how little Timmy's doing. He's now 4 years old. I met him when he was 1 year old. It's
time's flying, right?
Yeah. So, I think it's that. I'm just hyper competitive too.
I think, and I think that goes back to, being from Louisiana, being, from the bayou, cut off. It's like relationships were ingrained in you from the beginning as an important thing. It's like you said, mom and pop on just a little bit bigger scale with the Baton Rouge area. Yeah. But relationships are what drives us, and I've watched it in this industry for years, and it's the people that have the most relationships and genuine relationships, not just I know that guy, I know this guy, but actual real that tend to do the best, on both sides. You're on the real estate side as well as my side. Yep. And what I find is when they trust you as a realtor, if you send them to me, then I've already cleared a hurdle with them. Yeah. Because they're like, hey, Russ is my guy. Yeah. And Russ says this guy's good, he's probably decent, right. And they'll kind of call me up as opposed to maybe one of a cold call lead that we're both working. Yeah. And it's like, hey, this dude, he's moving in from Nashville, and but he said he was going to get with me, he never did. It's like they don't know us from Adam. Relationship hasn't formed yet.
And those are fun too, though. Speaking of these internet cold leads, I'm literally it allows me to kind of sharpen my craft. And humble me as well too.
They don't know Russ Vegas.
They don't know who I am,
the realtor.
And here there's Kunas coming in the house. How you doing? So I'm just able just to kind of build that. It's just so much fun to me. You go. I just met you. We barely just getting to know each other. Yeah. And I gotta let them know, hey, look, there's multiple times that I meet them at this house and I'm like, look, I don't know what you're looking for, but I'm seeing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Because I tell them from the jump, look, my job is to look at this as a glass half empty, because it's so easy to see the beautiful, backyard view and the beautiful countertops that are there. But how about, look, this looks like potential some, moisture stains, or hey, that AC's 18 years old.
Right.
Like all of those things is what I'm looking at
right.
when I'm going into a house.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
So you got to make sure that you're giving value.
Not all sunshine and unicorns.
It typically never is. So I'm going with that lens of like, okay, where are we gonna have issues? Where this client's gonna have issues if they purchase this house?
Yeah. I think that's strong, because the average buyer doesn't know that, right? And let's be honest, a lot of realtors will even probably emphasize just the emotional connection with the house and not necessarily hit on the 18-year-old AC, or the roof issue or whatever. And again, a lot of realtors do, but it is something that differentiates, I think, good realtors from average realtors. Being able to say, hey, guys, this is a great house, but I just want you to know, we got this.
And look, not saying this house can't be great for you either with an 18-year-old AC, but there's some negotiating that needs to be done.
That's right. And that's where a knowledgeable realtor steps in and recognizes that, right? It's not just someone who says, hey, you know what, this is a great house, right? I mean, you agree, right? And let it be done, because that's where the negotiation power comes in, and being able to get the best for the client, All right, a couple random questions for you, man. Do you have any hidden talents? Anything that you can think of that
I really don't know any hidden talents. No, I don't.
Yeah, we didn't go over that one.
Do you have any hidden talents?
Man, hidden? man, I didn't expect that one to be turned on me.
That's a tough one.
Probably not, man. I mean, nothing that nothing right now, I guess. So, oh man,
that one flipped quick.
That one did, man. I was not expecting that.
Next question.
So next question. What about since you've been in Baton Rouge? How's the food compared to back home?
Totally different. They got some good spots in Baton Rouge. Seafood wise, I'm spoiled. Because where I'm from, we could get the shrimp.
Best seafood in the world.
From the bowl. Yeah. So like, I'm really spoiled when it comes to seafood. But I think they have great Italian restaurants in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
I think I'm big with that. Also, Red Zeppelin, speaking of Italian pizza Red
good.
Zeppelin has phenomenal pizza out there. Geno's, love Geno's. The Giulio Brothers.
Yeah.
It's Little Village, kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
But
the Giulio Brothers right there at the overpass.
Yeah, and you can go casual. You don't got to go, dressed up to the nines. You don't need reservations for the most part.
Right.
They actually adding on to it,
Right.
Which is nice for more seating.
I think it's pretty impressive to come from another city, like you've done, and come into a Baton Rouge market where you don't have just a plethora of family, and you don't have all the help out there that maybe somebody local would have, and you've still been able to turn it to your advantage, and still have the clientele you have, still have the repeat buyers that you get, repeat sellers that you get. That's impressive to me, because it's tough. It's tough. I live in New Orleans, and I still commute to Baton Rouge because Baton Rouge is where my business is. And I'm that's where I found, like, hey, I put my stamp here years ago. That's where I'm going to stay. With my most effort. But you've been able to kind of say, hey, like I can go into Baton Rouge and just start doing my thing, and you have,
I had this mindset from year one when I got into real estate, knowing I had to hustle, work a lot of weekends, and, after 5 o'clock hours at the office, that if I do it now, I won't have to do it later.
Yeah.
And that was always a thing. I used to, unfortunately miss a lot of family time weekends and just say, hey, look, I have work, even though I didn't have appointments lined up. Expecting that if I get that phone call, I'll be ready. Yeah. And look, 60% of the time, I got the phone call, So, I mean, I sacrifice a lot on the front end to allow myself to, have more of a fruitful, so to speak, career now.
Yeah.
And,
And it's paid off.
It's paying off. Yeah. I still got a lot of work to do, but
Right. But you're seeing the growth, and to grow right now in a market that is tougher, right? Because it's not even the same market that we had 10 years ago.
That's right.
5 years ago. Do you still do the call times? Because I remember I used to come by your office years ago, and it'd be like 9, 10 in the morning. And there'd be like a sign on the door that you guys were in
9 to 11.
Yeah, still
9 to 11.
Yeah.
Every day I push 9 to 11, and I live by a few. You race, you must replace. So if I don't hit my 9 to 11, I like the 1:30 to 3:30 time frame.
Right. Man, that's such a hidden gem that I feel like. I've worked with a lot of realtors over the years. I mean, that's our bread and butter is our realtor relationships, and a lot of realtors I find just aren't doing those type of things.
I have to. Yeah. Again, I'm not from here.
Yeah.
So I don't have that luxury of getting business from someone I went to pre-K with.
Right.
So I'm always having to build and nurture relationships. And, I don't take that lightly. I'm extremely blessed and fortunate to have the relationships I have.
Right.
So I don't want to just take it for granted and be like, oh, well, I kind of made it now.
Yeah.
I could stop doing the thing that got me here.
That's a Nick Saban quote, by the way, where he says, part of success is realizing that you have to keep working at it. Because I just read this the other day. He was saying something along the lines of, it's human nature to get complacent because we're built to survive. We're not built to necessarily be great. And to be great is what we're,
always working on your craft. It's got to be a continuous thing.
Because if you sit back and rest on it, you're going to do even less than what your work.
Look, it's there's a lot of competition out there. A lot of great agents out there. So I mean, we got to keep sharpening our crafts to be one of the good agents.
Yeah,
so, give back to our clients.
Man, speaking of that, one of my last questions here: what would you go back and tell young Russ that comes to Baton Rouge and says, hey, let me take this test again and until I pass? What would you tell that guy today to do in this real estate world?
This too shall pass, right? Is that like a Denzel quote or something like that? Or maybe from someone else, but Denzel definitely said, and it's still to this day. I mean, we all have our tough times. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I think that's about it. It's just keep your head down, believe in yourself, and you're gonna get through this.
So there were times along this journey where you were like, "Hey, man, I mean, am I doing this right? Is this the career path for me?"
Well, not necessarily question the career path for me, but still to this day, you have your days that are like, "My God, I've put so much work in, and we're not seeing the results,
the fruit,
you expect to get," and that's just accepting that's what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like when you garden, Some things will flourish, some won't. But you're gonna guess what? You're gonna go every morning and still do the same things.
Keep at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say just keep on, keep on swimming.
Yeah.
Dora.
Awesome, man. Man. Well, I appreciate your friendship over all the years, man,
Likewise,
and watching you grow, man. Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good deal. All right.
Good.
I guess it's a wrap, man.
Yeah.
I guess it's a wrap. I hope Isaiah's still out there.
Isaiah.
Isaiah?